We start every video with the odds. We end every video with the bettor's edge. Stay tuned to the bettor's edge. I will have a best bet in the national championship rematch. Our number 18 is Michigan. Let me tell you guys, when the Gold Sheet Roundtable was going through the teams, I sort of made Michigan higher than maybe I should have. It wouldn't surprise me at all if when we finalize these power ratings in August, we have a much closer down to the number 14 or number 15 team, as they are one of the teams that return the fewest production yards and tackles. So we'll see what happens. Again, these were our summer rankings. And again, they are the defending national champions with some great history. So we'll see how wrong I was during the season. But again, the true Gold Sheet numbers will get tweaked in August and we'll make a readjustment. National championship odds for the Michigan Wolverines, 25-1. Big Ten championship, 6-1. To make the playoffs, yes, plus $1.15. No, minus 145. Season win total is 9. Over is plus 115. Under, minus 135. To go undefeated, yes, plus 850. No, minus 1800. And to win the Heisman, Alex Orji is plus 100, 100-1 to win the Heisman. Now, as I said, when we look at this team, it is a team that is coming off a national championship. Obviously, their stats were very impressive last year. Let's take a look back at the 2023 team. Yards per play diff, number 6 in the country, plus 1.93 yards per play. Yards per game, offense and defense, number 69 and number 1. Points per game, rank offense and defense, number 14 and number 1. Strength of schedule, they play the number 8 toughest schedule. And when you look at their efficiency ranks, they finish number 18 on offense and number 4 on defense. They went 15-0. They went 9-5-1 against the spread, and they went 8-7 over under. Now, I want to go back to those yards per game and points per game diff for just a minute. Very rarely will you see a team finish number 69 in yards per game and number 14 in points per game. Why was there such a discrepancy? It was because of their defense and the amazing turnovers that defense caused. They finished last year plus 19 turnovers on the year. That led to many defensive touchdowns and short field scores. When you look at since 2016, okay, we're going all the way back 9 years, only 5 teams have had a turnover margin of plus 19 or higher. And oh yeah, by the way, they were number 1 with only 3.0 penalties per game. So it really doesn't matter how much talent you have on the field. You're plus 19 turnovers. You do not make mistakes with only 3 penalties a game. That team is going to have incredible success. The only team last year that they did not outgame, this might surprise you, it was Ohio State. Likely not surprise you, but again, they won the turnover battle in that close game. They outgained every other opponent, and again, they were worthy national championship winners. As we look at the 2024 team, we're going to start off with our conference cheat sheet. We have them power rated number 10. Again, that could be anywhere up to 13 or 14 when we get to August. Only 7 returning starters, 1 on offense, 6 on defense. Their returning production, number 126. They have a new QB, they have a new OC, they have a new DC, they have a new head coach. And recruiting, it's not often you see Michigan number 4 in the conference, number 19 overall. So why do we have them rated so high? Well, they still have a lot of players that are on the team that had production. But it is important to note what they lost. Well, with only 7 returning starters, we know they lost significant numbers. Let's first check what they've had the last few years. Again, 7 returning starters with the lowest numbers in the FBS. The last 3 years, they returned 15, 13, and 17, so a significant step down. In the draft last year, losing starters is one thing. Losing 13 players that got drafted is a significant loss. When you look at my NFL draft points lost, they lost 42 points with those 13 players. That was actually number 2 in the country behind the Washington Huskies. Let's compare it to the last few years. In 2023, the Michigan Wolverines lost 9 players and 29 points. In 2022, they lost 5 players and 23 points. So again, returning starters significantly down. The amount they lost in the draft, significantly more than they have in the past. Well, what are we going to talk about if there's no returning starters when we're looking at this 2024 team? Well, they still have a strong rush attack. I have their running backs and their O-lines as their top 2 units on the offensive side of the board. They have a few significant transfers. It's just going to depend on how they gel with this team. On the defensive side of the ball, again, this was the best D in the country. They still returned 6 defensive starters from last year, so the defense is going to be good. And while they lost their head coach, OC, and DC, those losses aren't nearly as significant as a brand new system coming in, new coaches changing schemes. Remember, Moore was their OC last year. He was the interim for those 4 games, including the Ohio State win. Many of the systems will be the same. Their OC is Campbell. Well, he was the quarterback coach here the last 2 years. He is just taking a step up to run the offense. And the defense, again, it is tough to replace a defensive coordinator that led the number 1 defensive unit, but they went to the NFL and brought in Wink Martindale, who for the last 5 years has been the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants and the Baltimore Ravens. So again, the coaching staff, new positions, but it's not a negative as much as you would expect in that role. Quarterback going to be Alex Orji. He's a mobile kid. He's been in the system for a few years. Campbell's been his quarterback coach the last few years. He is now their OC. So again, there are some reasons why we don't have him down nearly as what you would expect with what they lost. Guys, before we look at the schedule, please give us a like watching this video. Please comment below whether you like the video, whether you disagree with things we're saying, whether you want something added. We're only on team number 8. You give us a good idea. We will certainly incorporate it into any future videos. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. The schedule, a tough schedule, folks. They play the number 5 toughest schedule this year. And when we look at the schedule, you'll see there's going to be 3 games as a dog or a favorite up to a touchdown. Game number 2 against Texas. They travel to Washington in that rematch, and then they host Oregon, and we expect them to be a 2-point dog. The schedule is not very favorable for them. Why? Look at their byes. They have a bye before Illinois when they're a 19-point road favorite, and they have a bye before Northwestern as a 25-point home favorite. But if they start 6-0 and win all those games, then not having a bye during the first 7 weeks is a positive. If they get worn out to that Washington situation, then not having a bye the first 7 games of the season is a negative. And while they do get a weird December 16th bye, I do want to point out when they travel to Columbus to play Ohio State will be playing a 6th straight game, so perhaps there is some fatigue where Michigan will have hosted Northwestern very fresh and then still be very fresh playing at Columbus. Gold Sheet 30 saves you $30 off a season subscription to Gold Sheet, weekly college football and NFL write-ups on every game, logs, stat breakdown. We have stat averages from the last 4 weeks. Check it out at goldsheet.com, or now at wagertalk.com as well. Remember, when you go to Gold Sheet to buy the newsletter, make sure you use code GS30 to take $30 off that annual football Gold Sheet subscription. We finish with the Bettor's Edge on each and every video. Now, I do want to point out that the Bettor's Edge is my advice and my suggestion. It could be that you're watching this video and I give you one side, and then when we get to the midseason and Michigan's playing Washington, the Gold Sheet may very well, because of situations, have the opposite side. So please note, this is a summer bet that I made and I'm sharing with you. Before I get to that bet, last year, Michigan was 5-0 against the spread as a favorite to -17. They were 8-1-1 against the spread as a favorite up to -26. When they were a big favorite of 30 or more, they only went 1-4 ATS. They went 1-7-1 over-under versus regular season non-conference foes the last 3 years. And against conference opponents the last 3 years, Michigan, 75% against the spread, going 21-7. Now, if you go back to the video and look, the projected line we have for Michigan at Washington is -7. I told you at the beginning of this video, Michigan may be rated a little too high in my mind. So let's say we do drop them a few points and Michigan goes down to -5 in our projected lines. Well, the current number at DraftKings as of July 3rd is actually Michigan -9. So I think there's great value in Washington +9. Now, both teams are at the very bottom of the Big Ten in returning production, number 126 and 127. Both teams, new coaching staffs, but I do like Washington's coaching staff. Of course, DeBoer went to Alabama. They got a late start. They had to find a hire. They go bring Jed Fish out of Arizona. I really like what Jed Fish did at Arizona and how he turned that program around. And while Washington is number 125 in returning production, the difference between them and Michigan is they have a very experienced senior quarterback in Will Rogers. He made 40 starts, threw for 12,000 yards, and completed 69%. And more importantly, he did at Mississippi State in the SEC. So he will not be fazed by the Big Ten Challenge. And remember, new teams to new conferences mean this. I don't know if Michigan has ever gone out to play Washington in Puget Sound. If they did, it was 20 years ago. No player has ever seen it. You have a new road trip. You have a new stadium. You have a new situation for Washington. Again, the July 3rd line at DraftKings, Washington +9 versus Michigan. I bet it, and it is my best bet for this video. I am Ralph Michaels. We will be back with the Gold Sheet, team number 9 from their summer power ratings. Stay tuned, and please smash that like button.